Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. I hope every one of you are enjoying DevRel Earth's online event. My name is Aya Tokura, IBM developer advocate based in Tokyo, Japan. Today, I would like to talk why we can't afford to ignore self-branding with DevRel. I hope you're gonna enjoy. First of all, let me introduce myself quickly. I joined IBM in 2018 and just finished 2 years anniversary in May. I have around 70 years comprehensive experience with IT industry as a support engineer, Symantec security engineer, VeriSign product marketing, Microsoft sales, Microsoft technical evangelist, solo startup, CDO, and IBM developers. Many experience. And I'm big fan of open source software and Japanese anime. If you have something in common, please follow me on Twitter at Mark AYATOKURA. I currently belong to IBM Global Developer Advocate team, and the Tokyo City team is evangelizing around IBM cloud technology with one leader, Akira Onishi. He's also ex-Microsoft technical evangelist. And there are 4 developer advocates for City team, Taiji Hagino, Kyoko Nishito, Noriko Kato, and myself. And there are 1 client developer advocate, Yasushi Osanoi. Last year, I published the DevRel 3C book with other 2 influencers to introduce DevRel for beginners. One author is Atsushi Nakatsugawa. He's already known as a DevRel guru who imported the word DevRel in Japan. And Hideki Ojima is apparel marketer and evangelist who is working for several IT companies such as Line, Stripe, Circle CI, and so on today. He's also taking care of community marketing community meetup, which is promoting the benefit of community marketing based on his 70 years experience of AWS marketing Japan. If you're in Japan, you can buy it at any bookstore in Japan or at Amazon.com. And Taiji also published the DevRel Q&A book last year. Unfortunately, both books are only available in Japanese. So one day, we hope these books will be translated into English or other languages. Empowering developer to solve the world problem. Smarter, faster, together. This is our global team mission, and it's my favorite phrase of IBM Developer Way. If you want to learn more details about IBM Developer Way, you can access to IBM Developer website. It's all available in English and Japanese. By the way, it's for your information that the developer often means programmer in Japan. So IBM Japan has been redefined the word developer as person who solve a social problem with the power of code. Well, here's question. How many people are doing DevRel today? If you are watching this video, please let me know by tweet or chat, or no chat comment. So please tweet if you are doing DevRel with DevRelCon hashtag, so I can connect with you. Next question is, can you get the attention from developers without giving your company name doing your DevRel activities? In Japan, many business person always carried business card to let attendees or customers to know who they are, and that's kind of a cultural thing. But it's very important to let people to make sure where they belongs to. But if you don't give them company name, what's gonna happen? Before I talk about that, let me cover what I learned when I was enterprise sales before I became technical evangelist at Microsoft Japan. One of the following played a major key as a touch point for customer to purchase the product. First one is company branding. Second one is product marketing. Third one is sales. Global companies like Microsoft already built a strong company branding and product branding. But they have a Japan office. You know why? Because of sales. They need to accelerate their business by performing their own local sales activities. Developer experience team had been already existed when I joined Microsoft in 2011. At that time, Microsoft didn't use a DevRel phrase, and they were using term of DX as a developer experience. And I was a technical evangelist at the DX department. They need to leverage their deployment tool to driven application deployment by strong relationship with developers. Therefore, developers had a touch point with company's product and DX team. Generally, many companies' public relations covers company branding, and product marketing taking care of the product branding. And how about developer advocacy? As you already know, it's a role of developer relations. Next question is, who is executing DevRel? In many cases, technical evangelist or developer advocate handle this position. So what does a developer advocate look like to developers. I mean, developer usually see developer advocates' personality or the way they act, especially when they first meet. I will share my story going back to 2012. I changed my role as a technical evangelist from sales in this year. When I was assigned as a technical evangelist, Microsoft had already had a mascot character for their public cloud service. Her name is Claudia Madobe. Somehow, her and I had the same birthday on November 20th. It was the birthday of Windows 1.0. I knew that many Japanese developers have grown up in anime and manga culture. And many people are saying that it's anime and manga usually makes people to more easier to understand technical or difficult information. So I valued her unique sense of the word and decided to do DevRel by taking care of this character with a character communication strategy. You may think it's kind of crazy, but by that time, the character strategy helped Microsoft Windows DSP sales grow. As a result of Windows character cheering developers, it triggered to let them interested in the public cloud service. This movement had spread to Singapore and Taiwan. I hid my real name and conducted DevRel while managing this character, so that I could get attention from developers. The Twitter account got a lot of attention as a mystery character. Later on, I published a technical description book with a comic appendix, and I even appeared as her at technical seminar. 2 years later, as a result of this branding, one of the startup with interest, this self-branding gave me a chance to become their CTO. By becoming CTO as evangelist, I was able to learn how startup can leverage Microsoft technology and success to build a great relationship with startup developers. Guess what? I was happy for a while, but one day I got tough feedback from many people. Fight with real name. It means I should execute DevRel with real name. This word made me think about my career and my branding again and again. In 2015, finally, I decided to deliver my first session at Microsoft developer event called Decode 2015 about Visual Studio Code with a real name in Japan. In 2018, I joined IBM. At first, it was very difficult to change my branding since many developers recognize me as Claudia and also Aya Tokura as a Microsoft employee who are strong with Microsoft technologies. And I had to keep 3 things. Number 1, don't give wrong company name during my self-introduction. And number 2, don't give wrong service name during session. Number 3, I'm not Claudia anymore. Meanwhile, I decide to become contributor for Microsoft open source project. Every month I contributed to the Visual Studio Code localization project, and my name was posted in README file. I believe contributing open source project is a good thing for any developers, but it delayed the change of self-branding since the way I act look like a Microsoft employee. So I decided to pay attention to 2 things. First one was to have a perspective to see myself as a part of a product. Second one is to create synergy by increasing the market value of my own self-branding without company name. If you are in similar situation, I recommend you to question the following questions for yourself. What are your strengths? How can your activity be useful for developers? How to produce your own style? Today, I strongly feel that it's difficult to gain the trust of developers without increasing their branding value. There may be many developer advocates that used to work with company branding and company budget. From developer perspective, activities that rely on corporate branding look like developer marketing. As you already feel, we're about to change a new normal era because of COVID-19. Some companies started to have very limited budget, and people started to using internet more than before, and we started to connect with internet more tightly. So I would say self-branding, which can establish branding within limited budget, is very effective. And using variety of SNS based on self-branding works very effective. I'm using Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and so on. And usually I decide to use SNS according to log file, and usually check how I can reach people and how I can engage with developers. My favorite SNS is Twitter, so I keep tweeting what I learn As a result, I get the highest engagement rate with developer compared to other SNS. It's kind of interesting that I've had less follower after I joined IBM, but I kept tweeting constantly. When I tweeted about the news of Red Hat acquisition last year, I got a big reaction from many users and developers. This override my record when I tweeted about Microsoft news with my real name when I was technical evangelist at Microsoft. Currently, I have over 10K followers, and I really appreciate their follower support because it was tough to keep my self-branding and motivation, especially when I had to switch my branding. Once self-branding is established, people recognize me as an influencer. That was a very good thing. I've got the opportunity to become speaker at the Oracle called Tokyo 2018. That is never happened when I was working at Microsoft. And last year, Microsoft invited me their developer event called Microsoft Build as influencer. During Build event, I kept sharing what I learned and became the number one influencer in worldwide other than Microsoft employee. And currently, I am also working. I'm working to empower women developers in Japan. Many companies and community that found out about my activity via my SNS welcomed me as keynote speaker and special speaker. It made me very happy and be able to promote technology, diversity, and inclusion. So here is my conclusion. To gain the trust of the developer is to share my own successful experience and passion via self-branding. Become influencer by increasing the value of self-branding gives me the opportunity to reach out to people who cannot reach as IBMer. It's just SNS, but it's still important for self-branding. Let's boost your self-branding and accelerate your DevRel. That's all from me today. Thank you for listening.